Lancer again today. We'll be going over part 3. So, combat basics. It is entirely possible to play through a session of Lancer without even touching a mech, let alone mech combat. Some groups prefer a game more focused on role-playing and politics, in which most conflicts are decided with skill checks. That said, Lancers have a particular talent. It's one that's bound to come up during missions. Fighting in mechs, even if you're playing a more narrative game, there are times when you'll find that you want combat to be more tactical, and for each decision to matter more, you want to test out your ingenuity and put your mech building and fighting skills to good use. That's the signal that it's time for mech combat. Unlike narrative play, mech combat is tactical and turn-based. It is also primarily about mechs. You can certainly use the mech combat rules for fights between pilots, but the options are far less interesting. Unlike narrative play, mech combat is tactical and turn-based. It is also primarily... there are a couple key differences between using the mech combat rules to play out combat. To determine the outcome of conflicts, you use attack rolls, mech skill checks, and saves. Players take turns and read during their turns have access to specific types of action. The stakes in mech combat are much higher and has the scale much larger. Whatever your other skills your pilot has, it is only their experience fighting in a mech that will help them succeed instead of getting bonuses from triggers. Pilot's grit determines their bonuses for attack rolls and save. Characters and objects. There are two kinds of entities that mechs are likely to interact with during combat: characters and objects. Broadly speaking, a character is anything capable of taking independent action. This includes player characters, the pilot mechs, and controlled by the players, NPCs, which are controlled by the GM, as long as they can take independent actions or reactions. Non-sentient characters like drones and automated turrets can also be characters. Characters can be hostile or allied, depending on their attitude towards you. You never count as an allied character to yourself. An object is anything that isn't a character and that isn't held, worn, or otherwise part of a character. This includes terrain and stuff like shield generators or landmines. Space size and measurement. Movement, range, areas of effects, and all other distances are measured in spaces. Spaces are equivalent to hexes or squares on a grid map. They can also be measured in inches or similar if you're keeping track of position another way. By default, each space is equivalent to 10 feet or 3 meters. The scale can be changed to represent different types of encounters. For example, in a massive pitched battle, spaces might be 50 feet on each side. All characters and objects have a size statistic which describes their physical presence on the battlefield and how many spaces they occupy. Size 1 character occupies 1 space on all sides and is 1 space high. And then it scales up. Most characters and objects range between 1 and 3. Humans, small mechs, and powered suits are half. Standard size mechs are 1. It's interesting that normal tanks and vehicles are size 2. but other vehicles and heavy mechs are size 2. Uh, I guess siege mechs or large, I don't know. What's heavier than like a tank? I don't know. But large vehicles, I guess maybe like some sort of bomber, are size 3. And 4 plus are Titanic mechs and flyers. Some of the sizing, okay, I guess it kind of addresses that here. Size doesn't always represent a precise height and width, it describes an area of influence. Not all characters are physically as tall as the space they control around them. For example, most size 1 mechs are taller than... characters and objects can be smaller or larger than size 1 pilots, for instance, or size 1 half, while mechs can go up to size 3 and beyond. Measuring spaces, anything smaller than size 1 is rounded up. Both size 1 mechs and size... I think they just really overcomplicated this. Turn-based combat. So in combat, you declare combat. Hostile moves like firing at enemies, grappling, and charging are usually enough to initiate combat. When the GM declares that combat is about to start, they show the map to the players, at least that the pilots can see, explain the position. Yeah, I mean, you should really just know all that from going, the situation leading up to it. But yeah, I guess you describe everything that's about to happen. And then combat ends when your goal's been achieved, which is, usually defeating the other side, but, you might have a different goal, like, you've got, like, some specific objective, like protecting someone, yeah, okay. Or, someone can surrender or retreat. So that is good. So it's like, I think there's a lot of situations where like kind of factions might want to retreat or surrender to preserve their strength, fight on for a later day, so that can lead to more interesting situations than just, doing it until only the last people are standing. So turns and rounds. Each character has 1 turn per round, unless otherwise specified. A round ends, and every character capable of taking a turn has taken a turn. Turns represent activity, not the passing of time. Characters acting, yeah, okay, that's sort of basic stuff. Okay, that's interesting. Players always get to act first. When that combat begins, the players agree on a player or allied NPC to take the first turn. If the players can't agree on someone, that's an interesting way to determine turn order. So yeah, I guess you take... Oh, that's interesting. I know the forthcoming MCDM RPG Draw Still uses a similar system. I wonder if they actually kind of got it from here, though I'm sure other stuff has done it. But yeah, so you basically take turns between a hostile and allied character until every character has acted. And then if you run out of people to take a turn on one side, then all the rest go on the other. Okay, and you've got a cooldown on some abilities, I guess. So characters can choose between several kinds of action depending on what they want to achieve. Make a standard move and either 2 quick actions or a full action. The same action cannot be taken more than once per turn. Except, I guess you've got free actions and reactions that you can do. So standard move is movement up to your speed, either moving further, activating a system, or making a shot without aiming. Full action require full attention, firing a barrage, performing field repairs. In addition to quick and full actions, there are several types of special actions: free action, reactions, and overcharge. Unlike the standard action types, there's no limit to how many free actions and reactions a character can make it per round. Characters can even take reactions outside their turn. So I guess also in general, it looks like your free actions are given to you by different mech systems and talents. Reactions are special actions. So you've got 2 default reactions, Brace and Overwatch. And then you can get others from systems. Reactions resolve after an action triggers them. Some resolve beforehand under specific triggers. Okay, and overcharge. Pilots can overcharge their mech, allowing them to make an additional quick action at the cost of heat. Miscellaneous activities like talking, wiping sweat, okay, yes, you can also just add flavorful actions that aren't, unless you've got like a specific outcome in mind. So movement. On their turn, characters can always move spaces equal to their speed. In addition to any other actions, this is called a standard move to distinguish it from movement granted by systems or talents. A character only counts as moving if they move 1 or more spaces. Characters can move into any adjacent space, even diagonally, as long as the space isn't occupied by an obstruction and is one they would be able to move in. Characters can't move straight up unless they can fly, for example. Some full factors, okay, you can split up your movement between actions, which is good. You're adjacent if you're next to any space, no matter what direction it is. Obstruction. So as long as the obstruction is smaller than you, it doesn't actually impede you. Allied characters never cause obstruction, but you can end your movement in a space occupied by them. So yeah, this all seems pretty standard so far. Engagement. If a character moves adjacent to a hostile character, they both gain the engaged status for as long as they remain adjacent to each other. Ranged attacks made by an engaged character receive +1 difficulty. Additionally, characters that become engaged by targets of equal or greater size stop moving immediately and lose any unused movement. After you become engaged with a character, you may make further move actions as normal, and moving into other adjacent spaces does not stop your movement. The beginning a move within that character's threat may provoke an Overwatch. Movement and reactions. Starting movement within threat of another character typically 1, 2, 3 range, can trigger reactions such as Overwatch. Characters that want to be more cautiously can use disengage as a full action. Okay. So you can get moved involuntarily. You don't provoke reactions if that happens. Then half speed through difficult terrain, which looks like it's just, if someone decides it is. Then if you're in dangerous terrain, when you enter or leave, you have to make an engineering check. On a failure, you take 5 damage, depending on the hazard. You only need to make 1 check per round. Radiation, gases, lava, falling rocks are all dangerous terrain. Lifting and dragging, you can drag characters up to twice your size, but you're slowed. Also, you're immobilized if you're lifting someone. You can't take reactions. It's interesting that you have it, same rules apply, people on, oh no, jumping and climbing. You can jump instead of your standard move. And climbing is treated like difficult terrain, moving half. Then you might also need to do checks for difficult climbing. You take fall damage if you fall through more spaces without bracing somehow. Can't fall in 0G or low G. Then you take 3 damage for every 3 spaces. Fall into a maximum of 9. Falling is also considered involuntary movement. So you're slowed in underwater or 0G unless you've got a flight system or some sort of propulsion. So if you've got a flight system, you can move both vertically, and that's interesting since normally I've seen it treated where whichever direction you move, it usually eats up your movement, but here it's saying you can move both. So, you can, if you've got somehow 6 speed on your flight system, that's 6 movement both up and away. You've got to do it in a straight line unless you use something like a boost, which can make you go a different direction. Okay, so when you fly, you do have to move or you'll begin to fall. Characters begin falling if they become immobilized, stunned, or otherwise can't move. Flying characters that take structure damage or stress damage must succeed on agility save or begin falling. During mech combat, characters that fly too high above the battlefield can only take certain actions. Flying characters must remain no more than 10 spaces over any surface to act normally. If you do move above that, you can only move and boost and cannot take reactions until you start your turn below that ceiling. This restriction does not exist in Zero-G. Carrying objects in flight, you cannot carry unless you're in Zero-G. So, it looks like in some rare cases you'll have stuff that allows you to hover. Hover gives you the benefits of flying, and additionally you don't need to move in a straight line, and you can still remain airborne without moving. Teleportation. Some characters can teleport, instantly moving to any free space within a specified range. You must start and end a teleport on a surface that you can normally move on. So it's not letting you like teleport to midair if you can't fly, it's saying. Teleportation ignores subtraction, does not require line of sight, ignores engagement, and does not provoke reactions. However, it still counts as movement and is affected by conditions like being immobilized. Teleporting character counts as moving one space, no matter how far they travel. Characters can attempt to teleport to spaces they can't see, but if the space is already occupied, the teleport fails. Yeah, we are not getting through this section today. Attacks. Mechs attack using skirmish, barrage, quick tech, full tech, and improvised attack actions. Characters on foot attacking using the fight action. Whichever action is taken, the details of attacks are determined by the weapons or systems that are used. There are 3 types of attack in mech combat: melee, ranged, and tech. Melee attack, the attacker chooses a target within weapon threat and line of sight, then makes a melee attack roll, rolling 1d20 plus grit and any accuracy or difficulty, and you have to match or beat evasion, and you ignore cover. Ranged attack, thin weapon range, line of sight, same. But you do take one penalty on any characters that are engaged. Then there's soft cover and hard cover, which you take +1 or +2 penalty. And tech attack. The attacker chooses a target within sensors and makes a tech attack roll. 1d20 plus tech attack and any accuracy or difficulty. Oh, okay, so this deals with the E-defense. And you ignore cover. Anything on a 20 plus is a critical hit. All damage is rolled twice, including bonus damage. And the highest result from each source of damage is used. Range and patterns. Range is measured from any edge of the attacking character. unless specified otherwise. Targets must be inside range to be considered targets. Must be at least one space inside a character's range to be attacked. Some weapons, the special attack patterns, line, cone, blast, and burst, of which we can see examples here. So it looks like there's two different type of cones. These attacks affect, this is pretty standard. Affect all targets within a defined area. Separate attack roll is made for each target. The damage is rolled only once. Okay, that is interesting that you do make. I guess because you're still firing weapons. That is a bit different. That you're rolling to hit each target with these area effects. Damage is only rolled once, and bonus damage is halved if there are multiple characters affected. This line affects characters in a straight line. Cone affects characters within a cone. Blast affects characters within a radius of a blast drawn from a point within its range and line of sight. Cover and line of sight for the attacks are based on the center of the blast rather than the position of the attacker. And then burst, effects within range of the burst. Some line, cone, burst, and blast attacks list a range. In these cases, the attack's origin point can be drawn from a point within the range specified and line of sight, instead of originating on your character. For example, an attack with 2 range and 10 line, so it's 2 blast and 10 range, would affect a blast 2 areas centered on any point within range 10. Some mech frames insist to grant increased range. This does not increase the size of the area affected by the area attacks. Threat. Threat is the maximum range at which a melee weapon can be used, and at which both melee and ranged weapons can be used for Overwatch reactions. Threat, like range, is measured from the edge of the character. So larger mechs cover slightly more area than smaller mechs. Unless noted otherwise, all weapons default to 1 threat, which can be increased with some talents and gear. Valid targets are other characters, described objects that aren't part of another character, and then spaces in the environment or ground. In range sensors or threats. Unless otherwise specified, you can't target yourself. So it looks like normal line of sight, but I guess since you've got drones and stuff, it's, it's just kind of standard, but just saying, even though if technically you can see something, if there's obstructions, that still doesn't count as line of sight. Arcing weapons are designed to lob projectiles over obstacles and can be used to attack targets without line of sight. Though they are still affected by cover, and the attack has to be still physically possible. For example, you can't fire through a bulkhead. Then you've got seeking weapons, which ignore everything as long as it's still physically possible to reach the target. So there are invisibility mechanics, but you can still detect heat patterns and visual artifacts, but you're hard to target. And so any attacks made against an invisible target have a 50% chance to miss. Roll this before the attack is made. Additionally, invisible characters can always hide as an action even without cover. So I am running out of time for today. I thought I didn't think we could really finish this section today, but I did think we could knock most of it out, and it looks like we've still got at least half left, though. It does look like there are just some tables in the back part of it. So we'll cover this. We'll end for this today, and we'll resume with the rules of cover tomorrow. I'll most likely be back on later tonight to cover another section of Game Wizards.